Alright, so hello, my name is Zach Wheeler. I'm a card game player, and so I'm here to talk to the people. This is mostly for the North America Buddyfight group. However, this is sort of just an introduction to deck building in the card game Future Card Buddyfight. Today I've decided to do a very simple deck building guide. It'll help deal with some of the small issues that I've noticed within our community. Now, I'm not saying anything is wrong. I'm not saying that like anybody asking for these top 8 lists, these best lists, deck building ideas are doing something bad. However, I'd like to see less people copy and paste the list or ask for something, and I'd like people to do more research. So I'm going to show you a few things that I've done, that I do to build a deck around X archetype. Today we're going to do a deck list that I find very easy, which is the Fifth Omni archetype. I'm going to be looking at the size 3 build, as I have more experience with it than the size 2 build, and I think that the size 2 build, aside from very recently, was more of a cheesy deck, in my opinion, but that's an opinion, and if you like it, it's your choice. I want to remind everybody that Buddyfight is a trading card game, unless it needs our support as the player. To be supported by the local game stores, to be supported by people. You need to show it to people so that people will learn to play, and if people enjoy the game, they can show it to their friends, etc., etc. And this is just one way to build a deck. Now, if you want to build your own way, if you want to test with your friends, if you want to take a top 8 list from some website, if you want to play with your favorite pet card, like I know that a friend of mine likes to play with his Wider Sarkyle, even though until recently they had very little support. It's entirely your choice. So with that, let's begin. As you can see right here, I've got the Future Card Buddyfight official site pulled up because this is literally one of the best places to go. It's a little hit or miss with certain cards, and as of recording this video, it does not have the New World Chaos stuff, and as far as I know, the New World Chaos stuff doesn't help Fifth Omni, but that's besides the point. So the first thing you want to do is right here where it says input search words. We're just going to click this. Alright, whatever you're building, this is where you want to start. So if you want to build for a certain world, you choose your world, you choose an archetype within the world, you go for it. If you want to build one of those off-the-wall decks, like I know there was a life gain list back in the day where you just played a bunch of like armor dragons and whatnot, you just have to remember what the card it's built around is and then figure out from there. So today we're going to be doing Fifth Omni, so I'm just going to type in the words Fifth Omni. And when I hit search, I'm going to get all this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the card name only, as a lot of this stuff may introduce a bunch of stuff that I don't need, and we're going to look for card name. We don't care about the expansion card type if you're trying to limit down what you're trying to build, what world you're in. I don't believe any of the Fifth Omni are in multiple worlds, but if they were, I could change this to any world that I need, any world combination. The size based on all their stats and any rarities. So we're going to do this. We're going to click search one more time. Alright, so we have 78 results. So now, because I told you I'm going to build the size 3 version, I'm going to set these to size 3 so that I can see the size 3s that I want to work with, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so there are only 18 size 3s within the Fifth Omni archetype that have Fifth Omni in their name. Not all of these will be playable. So, all you're going to do is really simply look at this. This is what you're looking for. Whatever you want to do is what the deck takes. So, in my opinion, the best version of the size 3 deck involves Doble, Ariat, as well as the new Arcade, possibly Merrick, but Sandstorm Arcade. So I know that this card is really good because of its ability. When you are dealt damage, which is the whole point of the Fifth Omni archetype, you'll put the top card of your deck in your gauge, gain a life, and then if it is my turn, I will draw a card and call a monster with Fifth Omni in its card name from my hand by paying its cost, and it becomes a size 0 until it leaves the field. Now, because of this becoming a size 0, I know that I can now play size 3s, size 2s, size 1s, whatever, as long as it's a Fifth Omni monster. This card makes it work. The fact that this gives me a gauge also means that if they cost 1 or more gauge, I'll be able to pay the call cost very simply. So since this is the main creature that I want, I definitely want to play this as a 4-of. It's very up to you on how you want to do your numbers, but for me, this is going to be a 4-of. So we've decided that this is a 4-of, and this could very easily be the buddy. However, later on I might show you that there might not be a reason to buddy this. There might be, but it's up to you. And then, as I said before, the best ones in my opinion are Doble and Ariat. Now Doble's ability is when you're dealt damage, you put a card from your opponent's gauge into his or her drop zone and put the top card of your deck into your gauge. Now I believe that this is very powerful because of the fact that it helps you manage resources as well as impose your dominance in the game. Now this is always changing in my mind. I've gone from playing him as a 4-of to playing him as a 3-of, sometimes he's a 2-of, but right now I think that he's more of a 3 to 4-of. Numbers are something that you have to test with. If you don't have access to 4 of a card, proxy the card, play around with it. If you don't like it at this number, make sure it's at a number that you feel comfortable playing it in. It's very simple to understand how a card can affect your playstyle. If you don't like a card even though it's good, then don't play it. If you like a card and it's horrible, play it. I'm not going to say anything is bad, but there are cards that are clearly not as great. There are cards that are clearly okay. There are cards that are amazing, but everything is subjective, and this is a trading card game, and anything can win. Anything could win. So the other monster that I like to play is the Ariat. I don't know why they changed names from size 1 to size 3, but he's pay 2 gauge, put a card with Fifth Omni into his put a card with Fifth Omni in its card name from your drop zone into its soul. The reason that this guy is never going to be a 4-of in my builds is because it requires a setup. This guy cannot be your first Fifth Omni unless you have a million other cards. So it's sort of hard to do, but I always like him as a 2 to 3-of because of his ability with when you are dealt damage, you gain 2 life. The penetrating double attack is great, but the fact that you gain 2 life means that you're doing the Fifth Omni thing of taking damage, but you're not actually taking damage. Every 1 damage you take should heal you, at least 1. Now, of course, on turns where you have to take multiple damage, there's other things that come in, but so we've decided that. Now, in my opinion, the best lineup is to have at least 10 boss monsters. So in this case, having 442, 433, 432, and another boss monster, some number, that's usually good. Depending on your archetype, you may have the ability to search your boss monsters, such as I know that Zodiac can, I know that Water can. There's a lot of cards that have, there's a lot of archetypes that have a pay 1 gauge search for your boss monster. That's something that you have to do within your archetype. For today, I'm focusing on the Fifth Omni deck. It's a little hit or miss, but it's not that bad. So we've decided on the size 3s. Now I will show you that there are some size 2s that you might want to play because Fifth Omni is unique in their size 2s. There are 28. Oh man. So again, when you're looking up your archetype, just literally read all of this. This is what you care about is cost and ability. Sometimes some are great. Sometimes you're like, wow, that's cool. If you have another Fifth Omni, this card gets crit +1. And it's already got 3 crit. A 4 crit for 1 gauge? Listen, there's worse cards. Alright, so the next thing I want to point out is the Fifth Omni Dragonlord Drum. This is a secret rare, so you can't see the picture. He was just reprinted recently. His call cost is pay 1 gauge, put the top card of your deck into his soul. He cannot be called to the center. He is an Omnilord, so anybody can play him. And then when you are dealt damage, if your life is 6 or less, you destroy a monster in your opponent's field. Destruction has been hit or miss. At one point it was just like, why would you play counter speed destruction, or why would you play destruction right now while everything is either indestructible, can't have its soul removed by card effect, etc., etc. But right now I think that the way that Chaos is built and the way that Thunder Empire is built, aside from bats, you can destroy almost everything. So I really like him. I probably wouldn't play him as a 4-of. I wouldn't play him as a 3-of. He's more to 1 to 2. Mainly because of his life break. You don't really want to be that low because you're risking a lot of random things that can kill you, certain impacts, certain situations where you just can't shield through everything. So I'd probably make this guy my next boss monster, putting my count from around 9 to 11. Having a 50 card deck limit really makes building extremely important. And then we're going to talk about Merrick. Now Merrick is a utility creature because of his first ability that says if you have another originally size 2 or greater armor dragon on your field, the size of this card on your field is reduced by 2. For some reason, all the Fifth Omni are armor dragons, but it's really hard to notice that one may or may not. So just remember to read all of your cards and make sure that you understand that certain cards, even though they're in an archetype, care more about the attribute than the name. Purgatory Knights are the only ones that I can think of that have Purgatory Knight named and not an attribute for Purgatory Knights. But that's neither here nor there. His ability lets you choose an armor dragon on your field, give it +1/+1 and penetrate, and then you take a damage. Now this is a counter speed, so you can do this at any point, which is extremely useful because it lets you have an ability to take a damage on your opponent's turn before they can attack, allowing you to trigger any of your Fifth Omni abilities that say when you take a damage. It's also very important that it gives you +1/+1 because sometimes +1/+1 gives you the stats you need to get over something or to not be destroyed without a link attack or something of that matter. I really like Merrick SD. He's probably the best card in the deck, so being a size 0 effectively means that he's probably the better buddy, especially since he wants to ping you often. Him coming in and giving you a life and then taking that life away is sort of hit or miss, so I think that buddying in Fifth Omni is extremely important, and he's probably your best bet. And then I believe, yeah, this is the reprint of the Fifth Omni Dragonlord Drum. He was a triple rare in X2 Evolution and Mutation, so he should be a little bit easier to get, but this game's market is a little bit awkward in that we have a lot of sites, but not a lot of people, or not a lot of supply. A lot of people will overprice their stuff. A lot of people will sell from international instead of locally, even though it's the North America group, but that's another issue, and that's something that is up to the people who want to buy and sell from other countries. So we've decided that we're going to play Fifth Omni Drum. We're also going to play Merrick. Now I'm not really keeping track of this, but you should have like a notepad open or something to make sure that you like this card. My best philosophy is to choose 4 of everything. If you go over 50, trim where you need to, and then proxy it out before you buy. Make sure you enjoy the deck before you play the deck. Now we're going to move down to a size 1. There is one size 1 that I know of that I want to play, and there's 19 size 1s in the archetype. Now, normally because you're playing a size 3 deck, you don't want to play any size 1s because you can't have a 3 and a 1 due to the game rules. However, there is the 1, boom. We have X Generation 5th Omni Cavalry Dragon Sand Staff Benestash. I don't know if it's Benestack or Benestash. Either way, I like this guy a lot because if you have a size 3 monster on your field, the size of this card is reduced by 1, so it's a size 0. And then on enter, you put the top card of your deck into the soul of a monster, giving one of your boss monsters an extra soul is very beneficial. And you take a damage, which thusly triggers your Fifth Omni's effect. So your boss monster gets a soul, triggers its effect, gains advantage. That's extremely good. It's a 1-for-1. It's more neutral than anything, but if you have the right boss monster, you know, like Arcade, you get to play this, give Arcade a soul, draw a card, play another Fifth Omni from your hand, all at a cool interval. Yeah, so I personally like this guy. He's probably closer to a 2 of because he's not great, but again, I go 4-4-4-4-4, make everything seem simple. And then lastly, we're going to look at size 0s. I don't believe there's any size 0s that have come out in the game that I would play. You could obviously play Show, but Show is a promo, and promos are really hard to come by. But he's a pseudo boomerang dragon. When he attacks, you destroy him or you take a damage. The taking a damage is great. The fact that he destroys himself means you can put him on your center if you want to use a weapon. Also, oh, we get to see the spells in this 0. Perfect, 13 cards. So we're going to see the spells and items. You want to make sure that you look at all of your options. Since we're in the spells now, I can talk about this card. This is Dragoism, Knowledge of the Fifth Omni. This is easily a 3 to 4 of in every Fifth Omni deck because As long as you have a card with Fifth Omni in your name, you just take a damage for free. You gauge and draw, and then you take 1 damage, which means that you then trigger all your effects after you've gauged and draw, which gives you a whole slew of resources, thusly giving you more advantage. And Buddyfight with this deck wants to have more advantage as opposed to most other decks which just want a field to kill you with. We have a Great Dragon Shield for the Fifth Omni, which requires you to have a Fifth Omni. You get to nullify an attack during an attack on your opponent's turn, so as long as you have a Fifth Omni, you get to nullify the attack. Fifth Omni Shield is okay, but I feel like archetype shields aren't always the best choice. In Dragon World especially, you don't need your archetype shield if you want to play blue, green, white, red, whatever. Fifth Omni Great Dragon Shield is okay, but I like another Dragon Shield better, and I prefer to have the life gain that comes with Green Dragon Shield because of the fact that you're taking damage all the time, but we'll get to that in a minute. We're also going to look at this Fifth Omni Sword. Its cost is to pay 1 gauge and take 1 damage. Taking 1 damage as part of the cost is great because if you play your boss monster, you can play it, or you can play it, then your boss monster, and then take another damage, because its ability is when you take damage other than by an attack, you gain 1 life. So this makes a lot of your cards free. It makes your Drago Wisdom go, take a damage, gauge 1, draw 1, and then your sword will proc, giving you 1 life back, so that the card is effectively free, just 1 card from your hand to add a card to your gauge and draw a card. I believe that this is the best weapon. I would easily play this as a 4-0 because you want to see it as often as possible, and drawing a second copy isn't the worst thing, because if your opponent can destroy it, bounce it, remove it some way, you want to have a replacement for it as soon as humanly possible. And then we have 3 more cards. We have, oh, it was reprinted. I didn't even know it was reprinted, and it was reprinted as a common, so this card should be fairly easy to get. Then we have the Fifth Omni Dragonfish Shiny Dragon. I've seen a lot of people play this because it reduces your damage that is greater than 3 down to, by 1. And then if you're dealt damage by other than by an attack, you gauge 1, and then it gains plus 3,000 power. Having 3,000 power means that it can hit 6k defense, which isn't everything in the meta, but it isn't not everything. It's strong enough that it will allow you to hit things that you need to, and then it gives you gauge as opposed to life. I've seen a lot of decks play this. I think I'd play this as a 1-of, just as a secondary option, just so that you have a better... Whoop, reset. I think I would play this as a 1-of, just so that you have an extra item in your deck. If you want to hit numbers, my ideal situation is to have 6 of an item, 4 of the primary, 2 of the secondary. Sometimes you want to play more if you need an item in your deck. Sometimes you want to play 8, or you're playing the item only deck where you want to play like 24 or something, so that you have a critical mass of items to hit. And then lastly, this spell is Dragobright Fifth Omni Light. The cost being take a damage makes this very powerful. It allows you to take a damage on your turn without having to jump through hoops, just so that you can trigger all your Fifth Omni effects. It allows you to gauge 1, put a monster with Fifth Omni card name from your drop zone into your hand, so this is a rebuy. It's extremely good with Arcade because you can take a damage, grab Fifth Omni from your drop zone, Arcade trigger, gauge 1, draw 1, gain a life. Because it's on your turn, since this isn't counter speed, you can then call the monster that you got as a size 0. It's extremely powerful. I don't know if I'd play this as a 4-of, but it's definitely something that's high up there. I most likely play it as a 2-of, maybe a 3 if I'm feeling very great. Now we're going to talk about some cards that are... Now we're going to talk about how to search for cards that do what you want. So right now we've seen that everything that we're looking for is in Dragon World. Knowing the game is the easiest way to put that. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for an ability or an effect that says take 1 damage, and we're going to clear this out. And we're going to choose Dragon World for now because, as far as I know, the only other cards that take 1 damage in Dual Worlds is way out there. Now this is going to show you every card that will say take damage, and we chose 1 because we want to take 1. If you type in take 1, you're more likely to find everything you need. But then we get to see all the cards that synergize with taking a damage. So Lord Dragon Shield is one of my favorite shields in the Fifth Omni archetype, because even though it's not a Fifth Omni itself, it does take a damage during your opponent's turn, which is great because there's not a lot of cards that let you do that. And they allow you to, this allows you to nullify an attack, and since it cannot be nullified, there is some spell null running around. It's not very common, but in the off chance, it's really clutch to have that taking one as opposed to dying to something. Drago Desperate was recently reprinted, so this card is extremely easy to, or not extremely, but is much easier to get than it was. It's extremely powerful due to the fact that it rests a size 2 or an item. Now, resting is extremely potent right now due to the fact that some cards can't be bounced, some cards can't be destroyed, some cards can't have their soul removed. But if you just make it sit down, they might have to burn resources to stand it back up. If they have to use their resource to stand it back up, that means that you're sort of one-for-oneing them. But then if having multiple of this in your hand, you'll be able to keep resting it and hopefully keep it down. So like the new boss that has Hex Double Attack, I don't know if it can be rested, but if it could, boom. Or the new boss is a size 3, isn't it? Look, see, I haven't played against Thunder Empire that much, I bet you can tell. But the best part is taking a damage in the cast cost means that you'll resolve the spell and then you'll get all your 1 damage effects, which is very potent in my opinion. And then I believe that is all of the supports, but this is everything that's just in Dragon. Well, yes, it was just reprinted in the Evolution and Mutation, which is harder to come by. I believe it just went out of print with this recent thing. But that's, for the most part, a spell lineup, an item lineup, and a monster lineup. There are other cards you can play. There are a million other cards. There are a lot of just generally good cards in Dragon World. And as long as you know what you're looking for, you can type in, you want to look by card name, you type in a card name. You want to look by an ability that you're looking for, you want to learn how to bounce something, you can just look up, bouncing is not a keyword, so you want to look up return, and this will show you every card that has return this card to your hand, return a monster other than itself from your field to the hand. You know, there's all sorts of things you can look up. I don't recommend looking at by card number unless you know the exact card you're looking for and you want to look at it specifically, and even then I would just Google search it. You can look up by attribute, which is extremely useful if you're looking for a certain archetype. Having an attribute such as, who has a good attribute right now? Such as Chaos, you can just look up Chaos. You can also look by world. There's a Chaos world in here. The Chaos world only has the Gear God stuff because Chaos isn't its own world, it's an archetype, and the only cards that are specifically Chaos are the Gear Gods, the mini Gear Gods, etc. You can look up by flavor text, but that's really hard to do. And you can look up by illustrator, which I believe most of the illustrators are in Japanese because this is a Japanese-owned company. Yeah, so it'd be hard to have that without being able to type out the certain kanji or whatnot. So this has just been a quick way on how to build a deck and then a quick shell of a Fifth Omni deck. I'm gonna hopefully get this out today. This is Wednesday the 21st. It's just something to show that you can build a deck without asking for a deck, but if you ask for a deck, this is something that I'll do. I know that a lot of people have been asking recently, so somebody asked for an Armor Knight deck the other day. I literally came in here, typed in the word Armor Knight, looked at the best stuff that I could find, and then I just gave them a short breakdown of a list that I would play or something to start them off. So thanks for listening if you stayed this long, and if you didn't, happens. I understand. A lot of people have no time. So thanks for listening in. I hope you have a great day, and keep on buddy fighting.